Hey guys, this week's video is going to be a short one. So I'm going to give you a short one today, and I'll give you another short one sometime later this week. I'm just going to dive in. You might have caught a glimpse there of what's going on the outside. That's for a future date though. I don't want to spoil that one just yet. So somewhere around 2013, everybody got stupid. They started deleting fuel caps off vehicles. Dodge, Ford, and later on you'd see Ford CP4s failing and Ford blaming the customer for contaminated fuel. It's just ludicrous. And it's crazy because Dodge has been like removing parts from the vehicle, a disgraceful attempt at penny pinching, I guess. They get rid of the fuel cap. There's still a def cap, but they get rid of the fuel cap. They got rid of the middle piece of the dually wheel liners. They got rid of the sleeve for the 2.5 to 2 inch adapter for the bumper hitch. They quit supplying the gooseneck ball and chain mounts for the towing prep package. It just keeps going, keeps getting worse. So today I want to show you the best solution and share a little quick story with you about it too. And I was getting ready to clean the fuel cap area up, but I wanted to show you all this dust. And they tell you that you're not going to get dust in your fuel system. You don't need to worry about having a cap. That's why I wanted to have these when I picked the truck up so I could put them on before I left the dealership. So they do come with a def cap, so that part's good, but no diesel cap. That's from driving 2 miles of country roads. Like I went to the car wash, I drove home. That's 2 miles. And you're going to tell me that you're not going to get dirt in your diesel not having a cap? Bunch of freaking morons. So luckily, now this is where the fun story comes in. The machine shop I was working at in Marysville, Kansas, when I started Doomsday Diesel, that's where I made the first adapters at. They had some ingenuity. They decided, hey, we see a problem here and we got a solution in mind. So they made these awesome billet aluminum caps for both the DEF and the diesel tank. Now I'm going to clean this off now because I'm going to take these off and don't want to get dirt in my tank. So not only did they make caps, but they made lockable caps. So as far as I know, they invented this. First ones to market with it, and then eventually Gino's garage picked them up, which is awesome. And then of course you get the people starting to rip them off like Dorman and Banks. You know, Banks has to have his hands in everything. But as far as I'm aware, to date, right now in 2025, BEM Auto is still the only ones to have lockable caps. So I'm going to show you how you use these. And if you're wondering, you know, why do you need a lockable DEF and lockable diesel? It really makes you take that extra moment. It forces you to take that extra moment and think about what you're actually doing, because you could put a DEF nozzle in your diesel tank. Short backstory, BEM, they make basically toys for lab monkeys, like test monkeys in labs. And a common toy is a lock. And they also have locks for their cages. So they're really good with locks, making up custom locks. And so this key, you can see there's an offset hole in here. This key just goes on here. We'll do the diesel cap first, then I'll show you the DEF. Key goes on there. You loosen that up, and you twist this cap, and it pulls off. And there's a magnet in it, so you can stick it to the thing while you're fueling up. And look, I don't know if you can see, we go all the way around. There's no dirt inside the nozzle there. It's not making its way into the tank, but it surely would have if we didn't have this cap on there. So the way this diesel cap works is it compresses this O-ring where my thumb's touching against this lip. So you do want to make sure this lip is nice and clean when you put your cap on. So it's got slots for these slots, and it lines up with those. And then this green piece catches on top of this lip, and that's how they're able to make it clamp. So when you install it, you want to make sure it's in this orientation with the screw over here on the left side. And it just goes down like so, and then you rotate the cap, and again that lip of the green cap is going underneath the plastic. And so then with our key, we're essentially tightening the screw and clamping that O-ring against the top of the diesel fill neck. So you don't need to torque it with the hand of Zeus, but you do want it to be snug because you want that O-ring to be compressed against the filler neck. And then for the DEF, it's even more simple. You just loosen this guy up, and he comes out pretty easily. And this one's a little more intuitive to put it back in. You'll feel it go down in there. Then you just snug it up. They taught me something valuable about DEF. So there we go. She's secure, can't come out. Good and sealed. So one quick fun fact, really important thing they taught me about DEF is most DEF system damage comes from the DEF making crystal formations because it dries and it basically turns into this film. And the only way it can do that is if there's airspace in the tank. So you always want to keep your DEF tank full, except when it can freeze, because DEF is mainly water. So if it's going to freeze, you have to give the tank room for the DEF to freeze and expand. But if it's not freezing, you want to keep your DEF tank full so that it can't form those crystal structures. And that crystalline structure is what ruins DEF systems. And I've seen this firsthand on our skid steers. You spill a little bit, you'll see it turn white. So the way I like to think of it is like a can of paint. When you get down to just a little bit left in the can, all the paint that's on the surface of the can, on the inside of the can, it dries, right? Or it starts to get hard. And so basically that's what's happening to the DEF. Anywhere that DEF is exposed to air, if it's sloshing around, it's touching the tank, that can start forming those crystals. So if you keep your can of paint full, the paint doesn't dry. If you keep your tank of DEF full, your DEF doesn't start forming crystals and destroy your expensive emission system. So you definitely don't ever want to run your DEF system empty, because then that exposes your entire system to atmosphere, like your pump and all of your lines, etc. So where can you get one of these cap setups? You can actually buy either one. You don't have to buy locking ones if you don't want them. You can buy the pair. They're available through BEM Auto or Gino's Garage. I'll post some links in the description. I'd love to see you give my friends some business. I think it's a great idea. There was absolutely a problem here, and they came up with a pretty awesome solution. So that was one of the very first modifications I made to the truck. I didn't even make it home from the dealership. Had to stop and get some caps, and I showed you exactly why in this video. That crap would have ended up in my tank had it not been for this awesome cap. So thanks BEM Auto for saving my fuel system. And if you're wondering what's going on in the background, well, got this pretty sweet light show going on. So I'll see you guys later on, a couple more days. I got another quick video. I'm going to show you how to remove the rear bumper on a new 25, because I believe it's changed a little bit from the 19 through 24s, but it's Less than probably a 5-minute process to pull that bumper off. I'm gonna go enjoy this light show. We'll catch you guys in a couple days.